Greeting fellow programmers, this is Pavel and this is the last part of this video series about when we're creating the checking and savings accounts. So let me just finish it finally. So we have the insufficient funds that we did last time. That's the event that we did. The next one we can do is the amount less than 0, which handles the check account that amount less than 0 and the savings account amount less than 0. And basically what it's going to do is set the transaction that is transaction committed equals to false, because we are adding or trying to add a wrong number, a negative or a 0. So message box that show will be something like amount must be greater than 0, and what else do we need? What's the account change? Alright, so let's do that one. Sub account changed, and this one handles the check account dot account changed as well as the SV account dot account change, except I believe this one requires the name, the account name. So we will simply pass it to it as the account name as string. So this is the handler for this event, and basically what we need to do is just display the transfer from or transfer to. I wonder if we already did that though, but transfer from dot text equals account name, and label transfer to dot text. So we will reverse them. So if the check-in account mode is true, then we are depositing to savings, because from check-in to savings. Otherwise we are depositing from savings to checking, and that's the account change event. Let me think quickly, what do I need? And oh yeah, when we deposit, we need to actually take care of the sign, the check as well, and let's do that. So in the deposit, the button deposit.click, we can finally commit the transaction and write the deposit into the file. So a transaction dot, it's gonna be the create transaction, and what does it want? The name, so the trans name. It wants the type, trans type, trans amount, and it wants the account. So we need to do the account used, so we have to call that method again to determine which account is being currently used. Remember, the create transaction, we already tried the transaction. In other words, we made sure that the values are correct. Now we created the transactions. In other words, we assigned the values to the date, the name, amount, and so forth, and from it we called the commit transaction that writes the actual transaction. So but I'm thinking this deposit and withdrawal, it works the same for the checks as well. So in fact, yeah, let me do that. Over here where it says the handles deposit, click, withdrawal, click, it will also handle the button sign check dot click. All I have to do now, this will be not else, but it will be else if the sender is withdraw. It's a button, so btn withdrawal. Then we will do all this, and else. So this is a deposit, this is a withdrawal, and this one will be check. So if it's a check, the trans type equals withdrawal, because we are taking money away. The trans name, and we can do something like check to, and remember there's a text box over here to the order of, so we can do that. So check to, in fact, to the order of, and whatever text is in the text box. So txt order of dot text. We will simply append it as a name, the transaction name. Now the what text box will be the text check amount. That's where the value will be entered that we will be checking, and add or take will be -1 because it's a withdrawal. And all this, and then it will call this and checks the values and writes the file. So that's that, but we also need the transfer. So if I go and click the transfer, so that would be, remember, the first add money to the account we're in, basically the one that the screen is on currently, and then withdraw the money from the other account. So I will do trans amount as double equals the transaction dot, this is gonna be the same, we're calling the same method like for the deposit over here. So and we're using the same object, the underscore transaction, so, and assign the values to it. So try transaction, and what I'm saying, sending there, what text box it is, well, it's the transactions text box. So the txt transfer amount, the add or take, we are withdrawing first. This is withdrawing from the current account, so -1, and we will call the account used to determine what account we are currently working with. And then I will do the transaction that create transaction, and it's gonna be, the name will be transfer it's gonna be transfer, and we have to figure out obviously where to transfer it. What would it say? So what we can do is append the if the account used equals checking, then we are transfer to savings. So we are transferred to savings. Otherwise, we are transferring to checkings or checking. All right. And the next thing, the transaction type. So it's gonna be, the type is simply withdrawal. Withdrawal. The transaction amount will be the trans amount, and the account is the account used. Okay, so what is this? Alright, is account used? Oh, because account used is true or false. True for checking and false for savings. So if this is true, then we will do the savings, and if it's false, then it's gonna be checking because it's transfer to savings or checking. Where did I do it? Checking account use. Okay, account use dot account name equals checking. So it's not true or false, I apologize, it's actually the name of the account, so I can call the name. So if it's checking, then we are transferring to savings, otherwise we are transferring to checking from savings. Alright, so that's kind of the same like before, but now we have to go to the other account and perform the transaction there. This is from what account and now to what account. So now we need to deposit money to the other account. Now we don't have to validate anymore anything because it was already performed over here. So we just have to set the transfer flag to true because we are switching the accounts, and we need to change the we have the amount, but remember after this the text boxes will be cleared. There will be no amount in the text box, so we have to kind of put it in there manually. So text transfer amount dot text equals the trans amount, because that is still stored in our trans amount variable, and the check account mode is now going to be reversed, so it will be simply not the check account mode, it will be the reverse. That's what you do. You have check account mode equals the opposite of check account mode. So that's how you reverse the true or false in this case. And finally we can do the transaction and this is basically the same thing. Yeah, this is the so this is gonna be transaction, but not to, but from, because this is a deposit, so this is from. So if the account name equals check-in, then let me think, because we switched the accounts now. Right, so it's, yeah, so it's still reversed. So if the account name equals check-in, then it's transaction from savings, otherwise it's from checking. But this is not a withdrawal, this is deposit, and the transaction amount will stay and the account used stays. And now I notice I don't have the end sub over here for some reason. And now we can go back to the original account that we had over here, because we don't want to switch the screen. After I, like I said before, it will try to switch the screens back to the current account, so I have to switch them back to what they were. Otherwise I would end up, if I was transferring from checking account to savings, the screen would refresh to be in savings, because that's the last account that we are doing over here. So our check account mode, basically, let me just reverse it again the same way, and we will do transfer flag equals false. Now remember, the transfer flag was used, where was that? In one of those events, and I don't remember exactly where. And it's oh, here it is. Yeah, with the commit transaction, we are checking if the flag was set or not. Again, so we don't double, since we are performing two transactions at the same time. We don't want to double the messages and the going through the refreshing the screen twice. Alright, so let me see if I can build it and run it. Hey, it succeeded. What do you know? So here is our screen. This seems to be correct. This is our check-in. So let's do a deposit. Let's do $100 deposit. Transaction has been added. And it did not refresh though. It says it was added, but I don't see it. So something's wrong. Alright, well, I did a little debugging, and the problem was that it actually was creating another file called check-in right here without a txt. In other words, it did not write into the check-in account check-in.txt that was already there. It created a new file without the extension of txt, and the reason for that is that when it commits the transaction, it just takes the name check-in without the txt, because I forgot to do the .txt over here. So I'll delete this thing, and if I write it now, run it now, hopefully we'll get the working app. So if I do 100 deposit, oh, I have it in debug mode, sorry, so I'll just continue. It says transaction added. I'm gonna click OK. Oh, see, it updated the 1100. The transaction has been added to it. If I do withdrawal, let's say 600, it says transaction added. It goes down to 500, and it adds to the grid. If I change to savings, let's say I want to do withdrawal 600. It says insufficient funds for this transaction. What if I want to, let's say I want to deposit to a savings $0. It says amount must be greater than 0, so those events work. But let's say I want to deposit $650, and it says transaction added. It updates, and it adds it to here. And you can see that when savings is selected, that is, the checks are not here. So if I click check-in, I'm back here. So let's deposit some, let's say $1,000. I got 1,500. Now I'm gonna do the checks. So let's say I want $650 to Powell. And if I sign the check, it says transaction has been added, and the balance updated, and it says check to the order of Powell, and here's the transaction. And let's try this one. So I want to transfer from check-in. First, let's try $900. It says insufficient funds. In fact, let me try that over here too. Let's say I want to do $900. We'll check. and it says insufficient funds. It won't let me do the transaction. Okay, so let's transfer 50 bucks from checking to savings. It says transaction has been added, and it was updated right here, and here transfer to savings. And if I go to savings now, it should be there, and it is transfer from checking, $50, and the balance is still 150. And if I transfer 250 from savings to checking, so I get $1,000 in savings as the remaining balance. And if I go to checking, I got transfer from savings $250, and the balance is increased. And if I try to do, let's transfer 1,100, which is too much, it says insufficient funds. If I do 0, it says amount must be greater than 0. So it seems, let's say withdraw $50, straight withdrawal. We got $1,000, and I can withdraw from savings as well. Let's say I want to withdraw $500 from savings. The balance is updated. Withdrawal $500. So there you have it. So this is the working app. It's been quite some work, quite a few videos, but that's how it goes. It's gets a little complicated as you learn more and more, and the more you learn, you find out that there's way more left to learn anyway. At the beginning, it seems actually easier than the more you program, the more complicated these things go, because you don't want to do simple if statements for the rest of your life. So alright, so this is it. I hope this series was helpful to you, and if you liked it, then of course like the videos, share them, and leave some comments. And as always, keep on coding. I'll see you later. Take care.